Okay, great. My name is Mike Reed. I'll be your host today. Today's webinar is on big data in your career, where I will share some insights of my own rather than just present a bunch of information you could find yourself. I took the time to reach out to the big data community, central to Jacksonville as much as possible. I'd like to involve them and thank them for their efforts. With that said, let's get this started. Fasten your seatbelts. We're off and running. Big data. What exactly is it? Where does it come from? Has it always been there? 100 billion to 400 billion, the number of stars in the Milky Way. Also the number of gigabytes of data that is collected every month, and like the stars, is impossible to count. Unlike the stars, the amount of data collected doubles every day. 4.4 million, the number of global IT jobs that will be created to support big data between 2012 and 2016. 1.9 million of those IT jobs will be in the United States. For every one big data IT job, there will be 3 non-IT jobs. Again, my name is Mike Reed. Thank you for attending. Today's presentation is not a detailed dive into let's implement Hadoop deployment. It's high enough level that you can actually get your arms around big data. There is a lot of territory. It is not a single platform. It's made up of a million little pieces and hundreds of companies that are contributing to the experience. So again, rather than repeat a bunch of statistics, I reached out to the big data community, to people in businesses that are already invested and seeking people in different disciplines. So to that end, I talked to a technical expert, an implementation expert, data scientist, solutions provider, educator, and a chief technology officer. So we'll talk about the big data landscape today. We'll talk about the big data phenomenon, what it is, what it isn't, where it came from, where it's going, and where you might fit into the puzzle. We'll talk about Apache Hadoop, more a high-level functional overview of the components, a very brief description of what they are, but again, talking more from a functional standpoint. We'll run through the Microsoft big data offerings. This is not a Microsoft-centric or specific presentation, but I have to mention it. So they are a big player in the space, and they do have some pretty cool stuff, actually. So, and we'll talk about your career. I'll present insights from the professionals I talk to and what their opinions are on what it takes to work in the big data area. We'll discuss the relevance of current skills and skill development paths, and we'll talk a little bit about training opportunities. And finally, we'll wrap up with industry insights. These are personal insights from the contributors and, of course, my own musings on big data at the very end. First up is Adam Jorgensen. His perspective, big data expert. He's president, Pragmatic Consulting. He's also a director for PATH. He's a Microsoft SQL Server MVP and SSAS Maestro. 13 years extensive experience with SQL Server, SharePoint, Analytics. His focus is on parallel data warehousing, Tier 1 OLAP, private public cloud, and big data. He actually worked with Microsoft, or has worked with the beta HD Insight and Hortonworks prototypes since they were actually released to beta. Has close contact with a lot of people at Microsoft, so he's very much in the know there. He's currently in charge of bringing the brain trust at Pragmatic works to bear on the big data space, where we are ramping up to provide workshops, boot camps, to help our customers get started in this area. Second, reached out to Denny Lee. He's Senior Director at Concur. I know him from Microsoft. I did spent some time there myself and had some contact with him. His perspective, industry technical expert. Denny is a pretty interesting guy. You should check out his site sometime, dennyglee.com. He is a well, in his words, delivering solutions to solve complex data problems, and that's very much an understatement. He also was involved even before Beta. He was involved in the Project Isotope, which is the precursor to HD Insight for Windows for Azure. He also, to his credit, worked on Yahoo's 24 terabyte SQL Server Analysis Services Cube specialties, and there are many of them: BI, Analysis Services, Power Pivot, Hadoop, everything, whether it's Windows, Azure, or the Apache distro, data warehousing, data mining, analytics, healthcare informatics. Again, check out his site, interesting guy. I reached out to Matt Burseth, Chief Scientist and co-founder at NLP Logics here in Jacksonville. His perspective is data scientist. His background is software engineer. Prior to co-founding NLP Logics, he worked primarily in designing and building large enterprise scale systems in marketing, logistics, and healthcare informatics industries. Matt has a software engineering degree, a Master of Software Engineering, and a Bachelor of Computer Science. He's also an alumni of Stanford's inaugural machine learning and probabilistic graphical model courses. That's a serious mouthful. Reached out to Robert Marsh, also at NLP Logics. He's their Chief Technology Officer. Has 15 years in healthcare IT, data analytics, and system development. He was Director of Software Development in his prior role. He has a degree in Management Information Systems. And they hooked me up with one of their partners, a man by the name of Leroux Cillier, founder of Lamina Solutions in the UK. His perspective is solutions provider. He's managing director and company founder. His master's in information management and a long arm's length list of accounting certifications. And one thing led to another, and I wound up talking to Sharif El-Fayyoumi, PhD at University of North Florida. He's the Associate Dean of College of Computing, Engineering, and Construction. Since 2000, he's focused on data mining. He has a strong background in high-performance computing and artificial intelligence. And then myself, why am I qualified to talk about this? Myself, I have a long history of designing innovative solutions to difficult business problems. During the last 14 years, I focused primarily on database development and architecture, more recently BI and analytics. I'm currently employed by Pragmatic as a consultant. Previously, I was Director of Insight and Analytics at a Jacksonville healthcare claim processor. Prior to that, I held operations, data, and information delivery-centric roles in Microsoft's online services division, specifically Ad Center in the behavioral targeting group, which is the primary research unit for mining social behaviors at Microsoft, and supports the Bing decision search engine and Bing ads.
Hey, Michael?
Yes?
I hate to interrupt you, but the only contributor we see on the screen is Adam. Are the other ones supposed to be popping up as well?
Geez, they are. Thank you.
Okay.
Sorry.
No problem.
Thanks. Okay, technology problem here. So, there, we're finally to me. In a prior life, I was co-owner of a multi-million-dollar manufacturing business, which with my partner we grew from the startup. That's where I gained much of my business knowledge. We were a little unique in that we were able to survive 2 recessions when other businesses were closing up. So, and I attribute that to use of our data. I've always been interested in business, and I have always been interested in where the numbers can be used and how they can be used to help businesses out. Let's see. Big data of the industry. Let's go in and talk about what it is. I have a few statistics here. 1941, the phrase information explosion was coined. 1961, law of exponential increase. This is actually related to scientific documents and how one spawns another, but it seems to be appropriate to almost anything anymore. 1967, we're talking about automatic data compression. They're already realizing that storage was an issue, and all data must be compressed to consume as little storage as possible. 1980, data expands to fill the space available talk. It's an adaptation of something called Parkinson's Law, which states work expands to fill with all time available for its completion, but that was 30 years ago. 1986, almost 30 years ago. Can users really absorb data at today's rate? Again, that was a long time ago, and the data around was, not that big, relatively speaking. 1996, evolution of storage systems. Paper states that digital storage has become more cost-effective than paper. That's when things really started to move and started to jam up the, that's when storage actually started to become cheaper and cheaper. 2000, how much information study states the world produced about 1.5 exabytes of unique information. Point to note, myself, I bought a 400 meg hard drive around that time, and it was roughly $1 per meg. So that's, those exabytes were not cheap. 2007, Expanding Digital Universe report stated the world has created 161 exabytes of data, also predicting 988 by 2010, doubling every 18 months. 2010, same study, the actual number was 1,227 exabytes. It was 20% off. 2012, same study, 2837 exabytes, and this is where you can do the math and figure out the statistic. 90% of the world's information has been created in the last 2 years. I was a little shocked by that. Personally, I went, no way, but apparently the numbers add up. So today, business can leverage the entire web as a data source, and that's huge. Jim Gallo, National Director of Business Analytics for ICC. 2013 is the year big data will find its way out of the data center and back rooms and into the chief marketing offices, chief sales officer, the C-level execs. This is kind of big and gives you some indication as to where the industry's at, where the movement's at this point, which is, it's kind of a warning sign. The type of data that's growing very quickly is the hardest to understand. We're looking at more and more connected devices and video, natural speech data. What do you do with that? It's not easy to look at, not easy to find patterns in. So let's talk about big data, what it is. 1999, Richard Hamming, mathematician, pioneer computer scientist, pointed out purpose of computing is insight, not numbers. I personally very much agree with this. Numbers are more or less useless unless you can do something with them. In preparation for this webinar, I've read hundreds of articles and I've seen a zillion definitions for big data. There really appears to be lack of a single universally accepted statement, and that